fixed dividends as well. So what we'll be doing, guys, I'm going to introduce you to Arif shortly. Now, if you have any questions, there's a live chat option on YouTube. So feel free when we're talking, if you have any questions. Arif, obviously we'll be here to answer them. Just to let you know, I mean, Arif and Ashbrookes Inspired, we've worked with them for nearly 3 or 4 months now. We've put quite a few investors their way. Very positive experience we've had with everybody. But yeah, let's move on and have a quick chat with Arif if he's here. So Arif, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, yes.
Perfect. Hi, Arif, how are you doing?
Hi, great.
Great. Yeah, so obviously I just wanted to introduce you to the people, the investors that we have on the webinar, just to tell a little bit more about yourself. Ashbrookes Inspired. It's a really interesting, project that you've got and an investment. Particularly, I'd like you just to talk to them a little bit about what's going on in Middlesbrough and expansion of the university. But would you mind just telling us a little bit more about Ashbrookes Inspired, how it was set up, and obviously a little bit about your own history?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Arif Mushtak, and I've got a background in engineering. I mean, I qualified as a chemical engineer many years ago, but then I went into banking. So I've got a sort of banking and financial services background, and then nearly 10 years ago, I left the banking industry and started on the property development circuit full time. I mean, it's always been an interest, as property is for most of us. But 10 years ago, I kind of moved it into being a career for myself. And I chose to invest in the northeast, in Middlesbrough. A couple of reasons. I mean, first, Middlesbrough is the town that I actually studied in and I did my degree. So that's going back to those that are as old as me, go back to 1980s. To kind of to do the activity there, chemical engineering, and then the second part about it was that it came up as one of the top 2 or 3 places in the UK for me to invest in order to get the highest rental yield back. Mm-hmm. And so I chose to kind of go down this particular route and buy small, inexpensive properties that generated high yields, with a view to kind of building on those, making capital gains and kind of getting that washing machine model going and building on my capital, if you like, 10 years ago. And with that, I've become, over the last 10 years, rather than just a maverick buyer of properties, I've actually built an ecosystem of my own, which is an end-to-end process within Middlesbrough. So we've got the ability to source our own projects and then design them, develop them, build them, as well as through the estate agency that we've got. We were able to let them and then sell them as well. So we're kind of very independent in terms of our ability to operate in this market, and we're not reliant on third parties to kind of hold us up or have differing interests in what we're trying to do. And we built this system largely for ourselves, because initially we were just building our own stock out and working to kind of let that and sell it. But since then, we've got a lot of investors who have come up from overseas as well as the south, and they've started investing in Middlesbrough as well, especially after there was Middlesbrough became popular after Management Today issued a report that said actually Middlesbrough is a place to invest. And then there was another European report that was written which said it was one of the 5 top places in the UK to invest, and that brought a small flood of investors to Middlesbrough to see what's going on. And we created Ashbrookes Inspired as our sort of development arm, and formalized it. I've been doing developments obviously for the last 10 plus years, in fact 20 years, and as one does, we've kind of operated under different companies and that have been doing slightly different things. So I've probably got more like a 18 to 20 year history in developments, but Ashbrookes Inspired is the latest incarnation and the strongest, and we've done this deliberately so that we can actually capitalize on the infrastructure that we built in Middlesbrough, because we're fortunate now in that we're being given opportunities to work on strategic sites and projects by homeowners or property owners in the area who now know us, but also from the local council and the regeneration team that's sitting here. So Middlesbrough is quite active in terms of regenerating stock, especially its central area. People that come here, and Conrad's one of them, people come with a bit of a jaded view of Middlesbrough being a sort of northern town, billowing out black smoke. But when they come here, they actually realise it's a thriving town, moving towards becoming ultra modern. It's got a thriving university, one of the biggest hospitals, a damn good infrastructure. We've now got a direct train between Middlesbrough and London, for instance. So it's come up in the stream of things, and with it, property prices are creeping up, albeit they were very low, but they're creeping up nonetheless. The Inspired business is mine at the moment. I'm the single shareholder and I'm the director for that business. And again, at the moment, I've done that deliberately so that there are no interferences, and the kind of strategic direction that I wanted the business to go into, I can establish it properly and firmly and fully in the way that I need it, so that when it works, it's my way. And then the projects have been pulled together over the last, I'd say, nearly a year, where we've changed our direction ever so slightly, in that instead of doing one project at a time and doing them sequentially, we've decided to put a portfolio of projects together, and are looking to operate, to fund them and run them and develop them in a kind of in a cohesive manner that allows us to kind of leverage one straight after the other and do a number of projects in parallel as well, and get efficiencies at scale in doing that through the building teams that we've got. Does that help?
Perfect. Yeah. So yeah, well, a couple of things I'd actually say. So obviously we've worked together for quite a few months now, and yeah, so obviously a bit of information on myself. I'm from Manchester originally, but I spent most of my life in London. But there is a perception with a lot of people that the Northeast is a little bit tired. But I think people don't realise the amount of government funding and investment that's happening in places like Middlesbrough, Sunderland, Newcastle at the moment. I mean, one thing I was really impressed with Middlesbrough was the university. I mean, they had such a modern university there. We had a discussion as well that there's going to be, plans in the future for a new medical wing to Teesside University. Now, I mean, even when I was there was a huge amount of foreign students, Chinese. I saw a lot of Asian students, Indians, and they were all coming over. And I think that's testament to the quality of the universities in the Northeast. But I don't know if you agree with me, but I think when the university starts to expand with the medical wing, the demand for student housing in that area is going to, exponentially increase as well. So I think just on an investment point of view, Middlesbrough is a very attractive place, to invest in, both from a capital appreciation point of view and a yield. The yields are, naturally, like you said, very high, but I think with increased demand, the capital appreciation element should increase as well.
Yeah, agreed. And the medical wing, the universities is making provisional noises about starting building work on the medical faculty in next year, in 2024. So that'll take them about 18 months to put together. So probably September 26, we'll see their first cohort of undergraduates starting the medical process. So it's not far away anymore.
Okay, and just a bit more on yourself. I mean, look, like I said, I've worked in investments for 20 years, and one thing I realised more than anything, and the reason a lot of investments fall down is that there's not a proper calculation of the financial. Well, there's not the correct financial planning on a lot of projects. A lot of people don't take into account any volatility or any hiccups that might happen. As I understand it, you've got quite a strong financial background, and you worked in quite a few blue chip companies. And one thing that I was quite impressed about with your company was that you really do have an attention to detail for accountancy and financial planning, and making sure that everything is costed down to the penny, to make sure that investors are as at little risk as possible with any type of investment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think all the projects that we're running require me to make a personal investment as well. So my money is at risk as much as anybody else is. And yeah, with my financial background, I mean, people would expect me to understand volatility and make sure that we kind of de-risk as much as we can. And the projects are, unlike some developers who take it on the wing and say, well, we'll buy the property and then we'll work out what to do with it and try and do it as cheaply as possible. We spend the money up front. So all of the projects that we've got, we've actually had detailed cost estimates pulled together before we've actually completed on legals. And and typically we've put them in for planning as well before we've completed on legals, so that we've got a certainty that we know what we're going to turn this into, and we know what it's going to cost, and we also understand what the market might do. So we factor in, things like inflation. We factor in currency movements, because we have been expecting overseas funds for some of these projects as well. So we factor those in. We're even talking to a couple of the banks at the moment about hedging some of the euro and dollar accounts that we've got, because it does look as though there's more interest in that space. So we need to kind of make sure that the project is safeguarded, and so we may as well fix the buy-sell rates on foreign currency rather than take the risk on that. So I think we're putting all of those things in place, and have put them in place for ourselves as well as for our investors, because nobody likes an investment that goes south, and we all want to kind of move in the right direction and actually make more than plan. And I suppose the kind of the businessman in me always puts a conservative estimate in terms of what the GDV will be, etc., leaving some scope for it to improve, or for there to be more wriggle room, just in case the market wildly turns against us while we're doing this.
Brilliant. Okay. Well, so let's just sort of recap as to what the investment is for our investors. So you've got a property bond. Now, what I like about this property bond is, or loan, is that there's quite a few investment options depending on what's suitable for the investor. So you've got a 12-month option. So you can invest from £10,000. And as I believe it, that's a 10% return on investments paid quarterly. Is that correct? So, for example, let's say on a £10,000 investment, you would receive 4 quarterly payments of £250. And then you've got the option to either get your capital back at month 12 or reinvest it. Obviously, I'm assuming you'll have more projects and opportunities later down the line. Guys, with Arif's projects as well, like I said, there's going to be a company debenture over the on the loan note. So any development projects, as I understand it, that Arif takes on, and he's got his Ashbrookes estate agency as well. So there's a company debenture as security for the investor's protection, and there'll also be a trustee in place. We've got a Gibraltar regulated trustee in place by the Gibraltar Financial Commission, and their job is just to oversee and protect the investors' interests. So, one thing we do focus on Open Cloud is the security element, and that's something that we feel very comfortable with Arif and his financial background and the debenture in place. Guys, if you've got any questions and you want to put them to Arif, just put them in the live chat, and I'll try and put them to him now or towards the end. Arif, just before we conclude, I've got one of your projects. I thought it'd be nice for the investors just to see a typical project that you've taken on. So I'll just share the screen, and maybe we can run through this together. Okay, Arif, can you see the screen? Can everyone see the screen? Perfect. Arif, do you just want to sort of tell us a little bit about this investment and what it was and how it progressed and how it concluded?
Sure. So I stumbled across some empty land next to these 2 terraced houses that were standing alone. Middlesbrough. This is maybe 200 yards away from the university, to the rear end of the university. And so I did some inquiries to see whether, to who owned the land, and found that it was a London-based consortium of 4 individuals that had bought it maybe 2 years previously. The land was empty because the 2 properties that were on there had been burned down by an arson attack, and the insurance company had the properties demolished for safety reasons. and the owners just didn't have the appetite or the knowledge to be able to rebuild anything new. So they were interested just in disposing of the land. They obviously made their money from the insurance company because they got full whack back from the insurance company in terms of the property insurance. So we managed to secure the land at a relatively low cost, and that's all it was. It was just a flattened piece of land. They hadn't taken the foundations out, and so we bought this. We sectioned it off, and it took quite a while to buy it because there were all sorts of covenants that were in place on this land from going back to the 1800s, that had to be taken care of, and we had to heavily insure ourselves from an indemnity basis to make sure that we could build this, and then planning took 2 attempts before we actually got to a scheme that the planning authority liked, and we then started the build process, and we gave the job to we split the job into 2. We had one main contractor that built us a waterproof shell, so they built the foundations, put all the walls up, windows, roof, doors, so that it was an airtight and watertight building, and then we sequenced in key contractors for all of the internal services, and built the internal development to design, and then furnished it, and then passed it over to our estate agency to let. That the whole process took about just over a year and 3/4, I'd say, but nearly, I'd say that from when we first took the land, maybe 4 or 5 months of that was just getting planning finalized and the conditions approved and materials selected with the council and everything else. Once we got started, the whole build, from laying the first foundation to handing the keys over to the estate agency and our first tenant moving in, took just under a year, and so that was quite good going once we got started. And it's a modern, purposeful student development.
Yeah, so I was just going to say, guys, this is one thing that's important for me to show to you guys as investors, because you want to see where your money's going and what it's been spent on. So you can see, look, if we just flick between these 2, I mean, this was a traditional, looking at a Victorian, maybe Victorian, I'm not sure, old period style house, and it's been converted now, and you can see, this isn't a brand new investment. Arif and Ashbrookes have been doing this for over 10 years. They've built up a strong portfolio already. So for me, this ticks all the boxes as to something that I'd recommend to investors, because first of all, there's a track record that we can look back on. Arif's got a great financial underpinning with all his investments. We've got the trustees in place. We've got the company debenture. So look, if you're looking for a low risk investment with a relatively low entry level, I mean, you can invest in this project from £10,000. Arif, I think I'm right in saying that you will look at doing more bespoke options, JVs and stuff for anyone that wants to invest a larger sum. So if you're looking at something more as a joint venture with Arif, then that's something just contact me about, and we can look at maybe structuring a deal. Would that be right, Arif?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think for investors who have got larger sums to invest, then obviously we can talk about securities and the kind of structures that make sense to both parties to move forward.
Perfect. All right. So Vijay, how are you? Thanks for the message. Arif, I'm not sure if you know the answer to this, because I don't think this is relevant for your investment, but your investment wouldn't be approved for ISAs, would it? Or it's ISA compliant? I'm not sure whether that's something that you would know necessarily about. We just had a question from one of our clients.
I think it depends on it does depend on the type of ISA. There are certainly people who are investing with us who are looking to put their money into ISAs, and we are working with a funding platform that does bring ISA investments to us. So I would say that, but they are investing in a specific investment. So it's back to, they would want to see a level of transparency and controls, because they would need to, because they're FSA regulated, and we would need to make sure that we comply with all requirements. So we haven't shirked away. We're very close to kind of them coming on board.
Perfect. Okay, that's fantastic. Just lastly, there is some options for any investors that are looking for Sharia compliant investors. I'm quite pleased to say that we'll probably be launching a product with you in the very short term. So anybody that's looking for Sharia compliant investments, let us know. Guys, so if you look at on the live chat, just at the top, there's a pinned comment. Now, if you're interested in any of the investments that we're discussing today, just click on the form, select the investments that you're interested in, and we'll be able to get you over the investment pack straight away. And if you want to speak to us about it, we're more than happy to. I don't think we've got any more questions at the moment, Arif, so really appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Thanks for running through the projects with us, and yeah, I'm sure we'll be working together again in the near term.
Thank you very much. Great, thanks.
Cheers, Arif. Take care. Bye-bye. Okay, so guys, that was Arif, and that's the company's called Ashbrookes Inspired. And like I said, just to recap, they're offering a loan note in which you can invest from £10,000. Returns are between sort of 10 to 14%. So if you invest for 1 year, the returns will be 10%, and you can get your money out after 12 months. There are options for 2 years and 3 years as well, with your interest actually increasing each year. So the longer that you hold the investment for, the higher the returns will be.